Good morning and welcome to the Week in Politics with Michelle Grattan. My name is Wijewickrema and I'm the Vice President of the UC Press Club, and we'll be taking a bit of a look in politics today. I'd love to start off by talking about the ever-building fight and tension between the Nationals and Liberals over the foreign takeover of GrainCorp.
This is a really interesting issue because it's a big test of coalition relations really early in the government's term. It's not just Liberal versus Nationals. There are some country Liberals that are on the National side, but fundamentally it's the two parties are at odds on this. The issue is the US company's bid to take over what is Australia's largest agri-business, and the Nationals' argument is that this really would put in foreign hands access to a whole range of infrastructure, port facilities and so on. Now the decision is in the hands of Joe Hockey, the Treasurer, and Warren Truss, who's Deputy Prime Minister, outranks Joe Hockey indeed in the government, and Nationals leader, has come out very strongly, very publicly, saying we don't like this, it's not good. Joe Hockey said, I won't be bullied, and that's where it stands, with a decision to be made by mid next month.
Speaking of Joe Hockey, he announced that he'll be axing 7 taxes, including the cap on self-education expenses.
That cap is part of Labor's program, measures that it brought in to try and rake in some revenue for the straightened budget, but the coalition says that the cap in fact wouldn't save much money at all, that there's not rorting, and that many of the people claiming this benefit are in fact people on relatively modest earnings. So that's gone. Also, the crackdown on the fringe benefit tax for motor vehicles has gone. That was a central promise in the election campaign, that a coalition government wouldn't go ahead with that. In addition to some of the Labor taxes, the coalition has taken the opportunity to get rid of a few unannounced measures that were not legislated, some indeed going back to the Howard government period. The whole move puts a hole of about $3 billion in the budget, and of course will push up the deficit figures. Now we will get the updated budget figures before Christmas in the mid-year fiscal review, but they're going to look pretty grim.
And so the government has made the decision not to send any ministers to the climate talks in Poland. Why?
Greg Hunt says he's too busy to go. He's the Environment Minister, who would have been the natural person, or Julie Bishop, the Foreign Minister. She's too busy too, she says. Greg Hunt, of course, will bring in the carbon tax repeal legislation next week, but it is, I think, unfortunate that a new government is not sending someone to these talks. These particular talks are not going to take fundamental decisions on climate and the climate negotiations, but nevertheless, with a new administration, it's important to be there, and to be there at a senior level. In fact, though, what we're going to have there is not nobody, but a bureaucratic delegation.
And finally, it's been on everyone's mind, spies in Indonesia. Do you think that having these so-called spies in Indonesia is going to threaten the Australia-Indonesia relationship?
Look, I think the revelations that we have used the embassy to listen in is an embarrassing one for Australia, but it wouldn't have come as a great shock to the Indonesians. Every country knows that other countries do this. It's interesting, however, that the Indonesians have chosen to make an issue of it. This may have to do with their domestic politics. They're coming up to a presidential election next year. I think it does inject a bit of tension into the relationship, which Tony Abbott seemed to have settled down by his visit to Jakarta soon after he became Prime Minister. It is a critically important relationship for Australia, not least on the need for cooperation on people smuggling, anti-people smuggling efforts, but in general. I think that these tensions will pass, but it's an irritant.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for taking the time to have a look in the week in politics.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you.